All right, Shalom. All right, let me get straight into this lesson, but I'll be going into, the J people to prove that they are Edomites. The people that call themselves J people, you know what I'm saying? That's in the land of Israel. They're actually, a lot of them are Amalekites, which go back to Edom, Edomites. They're posing to be so called Jews, right? And Jews, the word Jew is new speech. We never called ourselves Jews, so that's a new concept. All right. And when you go into the term Jew, it goes back to Judah, one of the sons of Israel, not the 12 tribes of Jew, right? It's supposed to be the 12 tribes of Israel, right? So you can't have a nation of Israel, right? They didn't fulfill prophecy. That was all a lie to trick you Jakes into believing that they were the people. They don't believe in the um the Bible. They don't believe in your Messiah. They believe in some called the Babylonian Talmud. That's what they really believe in. They use the Torah or the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, as a front, right? But what they really believe in is the Babylonian Talmud. And they've been posing as so-called Jews, right? But they're not. They're Edomites. Check this out.
Okay, so going back to the beginning, this bloodline we've been tracing of the Khazarian Mafia, a number of the witnesses that I have watched and read testimonies of and so forth talked about how the Luciferians that preyed on them would claim their lineage back to the Amalekites. And so that's how Amalekite has continued to come up in my...
Did you hear that? Amalekites. So if you go, let me see if I can find it real quick. Amulek, right, goes back to Esau Edom. If you track his genealogy. Matter of fact, let me do this real quick. And this, I think I'm gonna just do this another lesson, and go back into that history and show you the timeline, the biblical timeline, right? It says right here, I got it in Wikipedia. It says Amulek. The name Amulek can refer to the descendants of Amulek, the grandson of Esau, right? The grandson of Esau. This in Genesis 36. Let me go to that real quick. Showing you that the Amalekites, that's where he went back into the Khazarians. The Khazarians are what we know today as J people. I'm going to prove more of that to you. Right, let me go to this Genesis 36. It's kind of bad with me. Kind of just did everything on the fly because I've been wanting to do this lesson. All right, so Genesis 36. Give me 1 second. Let me just pull it up. And this goes back into the prophecy that Edom, you know what I'm saying, 1948, right? This Ezekiel chapter 36 and 5, the Edom, the Idumeans will appoint they land into their possession. That fully manifested in 1948, right? Let me see. So Genesis 36 and 1, I'm just trying to pull up the whole verse, If I can't get it, I'm just going to keep moving. All right, so Genesis 36 and 1. Right, now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom, right? So let me go down on that. I'm trying to find Amulek. 1 second. Okay. This 16. So Genesis 36 and 16. It says Duke Korah, Duke Gataman, and Duke Amulek. These are the dukes that came from Eliphaz in the land of Edom. Right? So Amulek descends from Edom. So let me get back to this video.
Dialogue here with you is because that's where I'm getting the evidence that I'm getting out of the videos I'm watching, the books that I'm reading, and all that I'm gathering to pull this stuff together. There's been a common theme of Amalek and the Amalekites, and this is Amalek. And as we saw in the last video, Amalek. This means liquors of blood. But what I want you to notice here on my timeline, and this is what all this has been building up to, is this 1 BC notation on this map I've got here. So you see in purple there 1 BC, and it says trade routes, China to Europe open. I'll never forget this, but years and years ago when I was fighting cancer, I was watching a lecture series by Dr. Joseph Campbell called Mythos, and he mentioned in that series that these trade routes that opened up between China and India and on into the West are what eventually destroyed Rome. And the reason why these trade routes eventually destroyed Rome is because these trade routes opened the path and gateway for the cynics, for the Eastern religions and principles that were brought into the West. And so you had the...
Well, let me say this. The Most High brought down Rome right at that time, right? The ancient Roman Empire, because it's prophecy, right?
People that had migrated over, and they came in and they brought great challenge to the spiritual fundamental that was prevailing in Rome. And as anybody would know, if you destroy the...
Give me 1 second. Let me find my part that I want to go to. Okay, I think this is the part I want to show you. All right, check this out.
Superimpose this picture of Khazaria. Now, to remind you, this is Khazaria. And as you see, it's right there between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, just north of the Caucasus Mountains, which is just north of the Levant, there next to the Mediterranean, as I showed you in the last video. Now look, I've taken that picture here, you see? I've taken that picture, and I've superimposed it, done my best to size it correctly, to not only show you the size of Khazaria, you see, but how the trade routes from India and China all pass through this area. Now, what's critical to understanding in how the Khazarians gained wealth and power are the trade routes, because they were bringing the money. They were marauders. The Khazarians were marauders, and they not only had tolls and taxes that they levied on travelers that went through there, but they actually preyed on the families. And I told that whole story in the last one, no need to go into it because we have so much to cover today. And so they would prey on these families as they would pass through, and you could see right there, as they're passing through this area to get to the west, you cannot avoid Khazaria. You can't avoid it. It's right in the middle of things. And this is how, from 1 BC, we get to 100 AD. That 100 years between the trade routes opening and the beginning of Khazaria, as we find in this essay we're going to be reading today, it's during that time frame that this whole system develops, and Khazaria basically is born, because they have this unlimited supply of money that's coming through their travelers, human meat, human sacrifice, and then they take on the identity of those people and move into the West eventually. But they build...
Do you hear that? They take over your identity and act like they are you. All right, let me get into this other video. There's so much to get to. Give me 1 second. Before I get into this next video, I'm going to get into this next scripture. Right, so the Khazarians, right, we know go back to Amulek, and we know that the J people came out of Khazaria, right, and they went into the eastern part of so-called Europe, which is really Asia, right, and they went to Germany and parts and to start acting like they was the people of the Lord, but they not, right? They're Edomites. Let me go to Ezekiel 36:5, and it's prophetic that they would take over the land of Israel, right, and act like that they were the people of the Most High. Ezekiel 36:5. Therefore, thus said the Lord Yahweh, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea. Idumea is just a Greek way of saying Edom, Esau, Edom, which have appointed my land into their possession, with the jar of all their heart, with despiteful minds to cast it out for a prey. So they fully fulfilled this prophecy in 1948.
Ancestry of the people that occupy modern day Israel as not being Jewish at all. By religion, yes, they do follow Judaism. However, they term Jew as a race. Any rabbi will tell you that as far as the tribes are concerned, there's no record, which is fascinating. So had they been technically Jews by nationality, would be from the tribe of Judah. However, now we can call them Israeli, which is acceptable to our modern times. Now, what's important to understand is that it is a physical Israel. And I've said this many times, and as we preach in Galatians 3, we are aware that this passage is actually directed toward people who are bewitched by Judaism. Okay, Christians in Galatia being bewitched by Judaism. And he goes further to explain that they're not the seed of Abraham, but those who are the seed of Abraham are from the promise through Jesus Christ.
Well, there you go. These are not the people of the Lord. He kind of went off, right? Because they actually are Hebrew Edomites, right? So-called white people today that has give you these fake nationalities. You got everybody calling themselves fake nationalities today, right? No one is using the biblical nationalities. Who did this? The so-called white man. That's why he got people calling themselves Nigerians. And that name came from a so-called white woman. You can do your research on that. He got people calling themselves Filipinos. That goes from the king of Spain, if I'm not mistaken, King Philip, right? So he just took over the territory and started calling people Filipinos. You got people calling themselves black. You got people calling themselves white. You got people calling themselves Dominican. You got people calling themselves Jamaican. Well, you go into the word Jamaican, I mean, it means wet lands. You got people calling themselves Chinese. You got people calling themselves all these. You got people calling themselves Middle Eastern, and that was a new concept that they created. There's no such thing as Middle Eastern people or anything called the Middle East. That is called Asia, right? And that's all. This all a pseudoscience and a pseudo education that they give you to keep you lost, so you won't never find out the truth, right? But these people come from Khazaria or Khazars, and they go back to Amulet, which were Edomites. They have relabeled themselves as J people today. They don't believe in the Messiah, and they don't believe in the Bible. They believe in the Babylonian Talmud. They use the Torah or the Thora, which means the first 5 books of the Bible, as a front. They don't really believe in that. What they really believe and subscribe to is the Babylonian Talmud, which is a sick book, right? And they've been posing as us. They literally stole our identity, right? And it goes back to John Hyrcanus when he made the Edomites convert over, right, and keep the statute, laws, and commandments. That's back in the book of the Maccabees, right? So it's much confusion, and you got a lot to learn, right? And it's so much more, like, putting these lessons together is, is a bit overwhelming, later, these days, because trying to compile so much information in one lesson, and it's literally it's impossible to do that, right? So I go more into this, right? I got another book that I'm reading that I'm going to be bringing out information out of that book as well, right? To let you know what time it is. Hopefully this lesson was edifying. Call Halal Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rachat Kodash. Shalom.